Everybody, Micah here, the Tavern Geek, and man, have the last 4 episodes of X-Men 97 been amazing. And I'm going to review them for you. So, here we go. So, Season 2, Episode 1 kicks off pretty awesome. So, we're in the future, and everybody knows how this plays out because I know everybody's watched it. But some of the things you have to catch here and some of the big spoilers. So, if you have not watched these episodes and you do not want to be spoiled, go ahead and cut this video off. Do it now, because I am going to drop a lot of spoilers. So, some of the big spoilers from that first episode had a lot to do with Cable and has a lot to do with what's coming. So, number one, Mother Askani. Mother Askani is Rachel Summers. If you do not know who Rachel Summers is, she is the daughter of Jean Grey and Cyclops from the Days of Future Past storyline, which technically in the X-Men 97 universe, she would be the daughter of Jean Grey and Cyclops in Bishop's timeline. So if she existed, or she's the daughter of Jean Grey and Cyclops in the timeline where Wolverine and Storm led the Resistance. I think maybe that's where that's going, because she mentioned the Storm in this episode, as she had seen Storm do miraculous things when she kind of coached her into commanding that cosmic storm. So I think that that's the timeline that she hails from. She obviously has the ability to time travel. We don't know how prevalent that is. She was able to, one of the big things is that she was responsible for sending the X-Men to the past and bringing them to the future, because she knows how powerful Nathan is. So that also tells us a lot as well. So is bringing the X-Men to the future causing Nathan to become Cable a whole lot quicker than what he would have done if they had not come to the future? I don't know. Or is this destined? Well, when we get to see till episode 4, you kind of get some answers for that. But it was really great. Forge shows up. Wolverine comes out and attacks some like apocalypse robot dudes, and like you see the bone claws, and he's immediately looks like he's dressed like the feral Wolverine from the 90s, which was a version of Wolverine that happened after the adamantium was removed from a skeleton by Magneto. So what happened was his healing factor maxed out after that happened, saving his life, and then caused him to further mutate. However, though, in the comics, he runs into another situation. I can't remember what mutant it was they were dealing with, but there was a mutant that kind of experimented on him and made him mutate further, where he was really crazy looking. But they didn't go that far. They just stuck with the typical feral Wolverine, which is great. So when we see him, he saves Forge. He and Forge, the X-Men show up, and Forge sees Storm, and everybody's happy, and they all go meet up, and they're all hanging out with the clan Askani, and they meet Rachel Summers, Mother Askani, and Cyclops wants to stay with the son, or he wants to take his son back to the past. And so he and Jean do what any parents would do, and they realize he needs to stay in the future, so they leave with him. And they're going to go off and just be away from the clan Askani and be away from the X-Men in the future, and try to train him to fight Apocalypse. But it gets intervened when Apocalypse tries to kidnap Nathan. The reason why Apocalypse wants to kidnap Nathan is because Apocalypse wants to use him as a vessel to transfer the Apocalypse seed to him, which is what he does in some cases. Like in some cases, his body is rejuvenated and continues to stay, but he does have the ability to transfer himself. Which he did do in the original X-Men animated series. He transferred himself into Fabian Cortez and took over his body. Which I'm wondering is because he took over Fabian Cortez's body, he was able to take on Fabian Cortez's mutant abilities, which Cortez has the ability to amplify mutant powers or strip them away and weaken them, which he did to Magneto in the original series. Now, if that's the case, and then Apocalypse in the present time is creating new Horsemen, which we see in episode 2, which I'll get to that soon. that could be a big factor in that. But the X-Men, Cyclops and Jean and Nathan get captured. They eventually get free. They face Apocalypse's future Horsemen, which is really cool. It was a nice fight. Storm and Morph and Wolverine, Forge show up to save them, and they make it out, and they get away from them. And defeat them pretty bad. And Ozymandias, which is the stone-looking dude, which hopefully we'll get some more depth on him. He's a pretty big character in Apocalypse's past and storyline. Goes to Apocalypse and tells Apocalypse what's going on. And Apocalypse is like, nah, and he straight Skeletors to the 90, which was kind of weird. Like, he immediately knew what he needed to do. He's just like, the X-Men are always here, just like giving me crap. So now I've got to go to the 90s and give them some crap. Which is interesting, and I guess we're going to see how that plays out. So that was the episode mostly, and most of y'all have seen it, and you see Forge is able to, well, not Forge, but Nathan eventually meets up with Ship. So Ship is in the future and Ship is in the past, even though we saw Ship in the present tried to defeat Apocalypse. So I'm assuming Ship obviously survived and made it to the future. And Ship had the ability to gift Nathan the ability to control his techno-organic virus and soothe his arm for him. And then that gave Nathan the ability to time travel because he has the computer, the little cube that you see in the original series. Ship has the knowledge of what Apocalypse is about to do, and says the X-Men are needed in the 90s. And this really bothers Nathan. So Nathan, he ends up having to use his computer to send his father and his mother, Jean, to the past, back to where they came from. And he stays in the future to become the soldier we have seen and have been really excited about so far in Cable. Now, what I took from this episode, outside of the obvious Rachel Summers spoiler. So Rachel Summers is Mother Ascani. She still has a portion of the Phoenix Force. She's still able to manipulate it. That's how she was able to pull them through time. It's nowhere near on par as Jean Grey when she has the Phoenix Force, just to be clear. She was once a host for the Phoenix Force at some point in time. She was in the comics for a while when she came to the past and was fighting with Excalibur. But so she used a portion of the Phoenix Force to pull them through time and also have premonitions about various different things and search for Nathan and things like that, which was really neat to see. Then the fact that they were able to get Nathan and apprehend him. So in the comics, Apocalypse is able to get a hold of some of Nathan's DNA. And when he gets a hold of Nathan's DNA, he's able to clone Nathan at like a perfect clone of Nathan. And that is Strife. And Strife is ridiculously powerful. He's everything Cable is, like without the techno-organic virus. It's very strong. However, he is a clone of Cable, which Cable is the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor, who is a clone of Jean. I know this is a lot. And believe me, the way X-Men 97 has done Cable's backstory, nowhere touches how horribly written Cable's backstory is in the comic books. Trust me on that one. So that's another one from the future timeline there. So then when they return home, they're all there and they're all, they're concerned about Xavier's team and they're wondering what's going on in the past. And that's where Bishop ends up going. Bishop goes to the past. So in episode 2, it's a little different. It gives us a break from the time travel and we get X-Force. So the opening scene is Cable and Jubilee and Sunspot and Psylocke and Warren Worthington's Archangel, which was really cool. And I know a lot of people geeked out. And Cable really earned this. Like his portrayal in the last season, he really earned his team. Like it was really cool seeing it. And so you got a lot in this episode. The beginning had mutants that are on the run still. That's still going on. They're on the run. And they go to the Xavier school because They think that the X-Men are there, and they're not, and they're stopped by the government. And when you immediately think they're going to get apprehended or whatnot, and something's going to happen, like a typical X-Men show or comic. But no, it was X-Factor. X-Factor showed up. So X-Factor is Havoc, Strong Guy, Multiple Man, Wolfsbane, and Polaris. And Polaris is, and here is another spoiler, Polaris is the daughter of Magneto. Her powers are very similar to Magneto's. I don't think she's on the same level as him with manipulating magnetism. I can't remember totally how her powers work. I know she has some cases where she's stronger than him and cases where she is not. But she's also in the X-Men 97 lore and the X-Men animated series lore. She's also one of the original X-Men who left the X-Men with Bobby Drake's Iceman because they were just fed up with pursuing Xavier's dream, and they wanted just to have a life to themselves, basically what Charles wanted for Scott and Jean in the first season. So they show up, they take the kids, and they're like, hey, we're the good guys. And another spoiler is Havoc, which I'm not going to get into that. You'll have to see that one. If you're a main X-Men fan, you know what I'm going to say. But Havoc gets the kids. They take them in, but they end up collaring them and end up putting them in cells. And that's not cool. That's not how this works. And so this is the way the government deals with mutants. Jubilee and X-Force, Cable recruits Jubilee to X-Force, and Psylocke trains Jubilee and Roberto, and fighting and all that and stuff, and so does Cable, and it's really cool because now they've got like some really great fighting skills. And they go on some mission, and they're tracking down Apocalypse. He's leaving traces everywhere, and they end up going after his old horseman War, who was a horseman alongside of Warren Worthington's Archangel in the original series. And for some reason, War was dealing with Emma Frost, and he was trying to get something from Emma Frost. He was trying to move something, so they had to go visit Emma Frost. So you got a really cool Emma Frost cameo. This also kind of teases at her kind of working with the X-Men, which she does in the comics later on, and becomes a pretty well-known character in the X-Men, and still is. But that's to be determined. But here she's working with War, so she's got some tie to Apocalypse, but she's kind of washing herself of it. What is in it for her to help Apocalypse like that? Because when they come to her, they get the information they want. She gives them that information, but then she turns them over to Polaris and Havoc and X-Factor. So they have to deal with X-Factor, have a little battle scene with X-Factor. Jubilee gets left behind. Jubilee gets locked up. She gets collared. Jubilee gets ticked off. Jubilee calls out Polaris. Hey, you're an original X-Men. Do you really stand up for this? And that was great. It was really good writing for Jubilee. It was Jubilee just embodying everything that she got from the X-Men in the first series. And I don't know about you guys, but what I picked up with Jubilee is you pick up different personality traits that she picks up from the different X-Men that mentored her, like Storm, Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue, Beast. I mean, you can kind of pick that up in the writing. I don't know if you guys picked that up. I did. Maybe it's just me being a fanboy. But it was really great. And her putting the headphones on and just rocking out to some Veruca Salt and just whooping tail, that was awesome. That was so cool. So I jumped the gun here, but Polaris actually frees Jubilee, and she throws on her headphones and she rocks out and fights against the government agents and frees all the mutants, as any X-Man would do, which was a great scene. All the kids end up on Cable's giant, huge ship that he's got, big plane. He's got one of those cool, huge military, planes, and and Archangel is trying to tell them, what we're doing is no place for kids. And that's when Cable kind of flashbacks and says kids are stronger than you think, and he remembers himself as a kid. But we also get this feeling in that scene that he remembers his mom and dad, which in the original series, when he kidnaps Wolverine because he needs to use Wolverine's healing factor to stop the legacy virus. Well, it's not the legacy virus. It was a virus that Apocalypse created to kill all the mutants because he's Apocalypse and he does horrible stuff like that. He used Wolverine's healing factor to create antibodies for it. But when he was scanning through his computer, trying to learn about the X-Men, about Wolverine, he wanted to learn about Wolverine, didn't know a whole lot. They brought up, he told him just to skip over Scott Summers and Jean Grey, so he knew all about them. So at that point, he knew they were his parents. So I think that what happened, what this is already pointing to, the X-Men went to the past. It was destined for them to time travel, so it doesn't mess up the time stream. They went to the future because it was destined for them to time travel. That doesn't mess up the time stream. It's part of destiny. So, and that's kind of what Rachel Summers was hinting at. She could see into destiny with the Phoenix Force, and this is something that had to happen. It was just a really great episode. Episode 2 was, and just really, really great to see them interacting together and seeing Psylocke fighting against people, because we didn't get a whole lot of Psylocke in the original series. Like, Psylocke's a really great character, and it was really good to have her around as the ninja telepath. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get more. And then seeing Archangel alive, because we all thought he was dead. All thought he was dead at Genosha because he was there flying around, so we thought he died in the explosion, but he didn't. So then we move on to episode 3. And episode 3 is where we get a lot of comic accurate things, a lot of Easter eggs, and some really cool stuff happens in episode 3. So we're in ancient Egypt, and Charles and Magneto, Beast, Rogue, and Nightcrawler are with Apocalypse. They're within Sabanur before he becomes Apocalypse. And Magneto has kind of become like a mentor, but and Sabanur calls him like a prophet to him. They don't tell him why they're there. They're just like hanging out in his place, like in his like fortress place, like hoarding technology from the Pharaoh, because they realize his technology is from the future, which we all saw that in the end credits scene to the last season. The Pharaoh is Rama-Tut. This has been all over the place. If you all are not familiar with Marvel Comics, then I'm sorry, but this is a big spoiler. Rama-Tut is Kang. Kang the Conqueror, originally in the comic books, went back in time to conquer this Egyptian city, and was thwarted by the Fantastic Four. They went back in time and stopped him. But later on in the comics, and especially on Apocalypse's origin, we find out he was there to stop Apocalypse all along, which is what he is doing now. He's trying to get to what is known as the Death Seed before Apocalypse, before Sabanur does. And the Death Seed is something that's been generated by the Celestials. So the episode keeps going on. You start to see this weird shift here. And I don't know if you guys picked it up, but Magneto is playing the role of Professor Xavier, while Professor Xavier is playing the role of Magneto. But it's still very strange. He's still Xavier and he's still Magneto. So in the comic books, in the comics, and then just recently in the last season, when Xavier shut Magneto's mind down after he ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine, it was like their consciousness kind of blended together. And which could be a result of him totally going in there and hijacking Magneto's mind, which is what Jean warned him about in the first season. And in the comics, that's the same thing that happened. So you start to see these kind of characteristic traits happen. You see kind of Xavier being kind of, snotty and villainy a little bit. He's kind of like, this is the worst mutant ever. There's no redeeming this dude. Like, let's take him out now and let's get out of here, which is very unlike Xavier. And it's very unlike Magneto to be in there and be like, we must redeem him to be the ultimate X-Men. But as you can see, Xavier is only worried about not messing up the time stream, which is very much Xavier, because he's worried about everyone's consent. He's worried about every human, all life, because messing up the time stream affects all life. And he's worried about that. That is very Xavier. And then on the other side, Magneto is also like, well, if I can turn Insaminor into the first X-Man, the first person that believes in Charles's dream, then none of this horrible stuff will happen. It'll rewrite history. We could stop wars and all this stuff. It's noble, but it's still pushing boundaries there, as Nightcrawler kind of reiterates later and explains. But so they're doing that. Insaminor ends up charging the Pharaoh's gates. To fight against the General Logos, and Magneto's guiding him, kind of coaching him to defeat all these armies and make his way in. And he does. He defeats the general, and instead of killing him, Magneto talks him into taking the general, which is a very Xavier thing to do. Kind of Magneto thing to do. Do you see where we're going here? I hope you do. So General Logos comes back. The X-Men get a bunch of the robots, the Pharaoh's robots, Kang's robots, and they're using it because Beast realizes there's power within these robots that can power. He could build a temporal portal and get them home with, but it doesn't work because he doesn't have enough power, it doesn't have enough power, and so they try to figure out something else. So Xavier goes to probe the mind of General Logos while he's being in captivity. Ball, Insaminor's right-hand dude, the guy that saved him, almost like a father figure to him, does not like the X-Men. He's not about what they're up to, can't stand Magneto, he's not into it. He's all about survival is the fittest, and we must destroy and kill them all. And that is where Apocalypse gets his basic motto is survival of the fittest. So while the X-Men are probing Logos' mind, Xavier sees a temple and he sees a constellation, and he meets up against the power of that temple in the mind of Logos, and he sees how powerful it can be. And he tells Magneto, I don't know if we should go this far. I think we should get out of here. Let's just get some of this tech, and let's figure out how to go back, to the future. Like, let's stop what we're doing. Magneto, no, we have to continue with Insaminor, trying to get him to be this, savior to mutant kind. Lo and behold, they go into their lair, and Ball has went into where they're staying, and they're like place where Beast has been working on stuff, and he finds the robots, and he thinks they're building weapons to stop them. They're kind of like they're on the inside with Pharaoh or whatever, because they are different and they show up out of nowhere. So Insaminor thinks he's going to take them down. So a big battle happens. Everybody's fighting, and Bishop shows up. And Bishop shows up to take them back. He takes out Apocalypse, and they all get the time bands, and they all decide at that point, yeah, we need to head back. But right then, the Pharaoh attacks. And it's a huge blast the Pharaoh sends with some future technology. And that's where they leave us at. Okay, so they leave us right there on that cliffhanger. And then we go into episode 4, Rise of Apocalypse. And Apocalypse survives. Ball is dead, which he mourns a little bit over. Well, he definitely mourns over, but he's a tough dude, and he can't cry. And Magneto's able to shield the X-Men and protect them like he would do. They make a deal with Insaminor that they're going to try to get back at Pharaoh, but Xavier talks to Insaminor and tells him, hey, look, like, there is a great power in that temple, and I almost feel like that it has something to do with you. And so he decides to do a mind probe with Insaminor, where he finds the constellation. And this constellation, and will lead them to this temple with this great power that they want to get to it, and maybe it'll help them defeat Rama-Tut's army. Rama-Tut reaches out to Xavier in the night and speaks to him with his own cool little Cerebro. Why? Because Rama-Tut is Kang, and Kang probably has Cerebro technology. Even though he has no powers, he can still use it. Maybe it works as like it can just communicate with psychics or something like that, and he can use it to just communicate with other telepaths. But, however, he communicated with Xavier. He and Xavier have a discussion. He learns about he tells Xavier, I'm here to stop him from becoming Apocalypse, but I want that power so I can be that strong. And Xavier is like, well, you're just as bad, blah, 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 and so forth and and whatnot. So then that ends their little mind probe. And then the next day they go to the temple. Well, on their way into the temple, Insabanor chooses to keep Charles with him because he trusts him now a little bit more than Magneto, because Magneto's kind of lied to him and kind of strung him along a little bit. And they get in there, and there it is, the Temple of Apocalypse, and they find out real quick that Insabanor is very aware of what's going on. So Insabanor was using them. He was using them to help him find that temple. This whole time, not consciously, but he was supposed to become Apocalypse with their help, which is crazy. So Beast and Rogue and Magneto and Nightcrawler figure out that they were on ship. So ship is in the past, and they're figuring out their own ship from the original series, which is Apocalypse's vessel. It's a weapon vessel that the Celestials gave him, and Beast is trying to figure out how to use ship's tech to repair the Bishop's armbands, because Magneto destroyed Bishop's armbands because he wants to continue to try to redeem Nur. This is the continued thing that's going on in the past. Xavier's like, let's get the heck out of here. Apocalypse is bad news, bro. And Magneto is like, we can turn him into the greatest X-Man ever. And Xavier's like, well, Magnus, I trust you more than anyone. You are my home slice for life. We ride or die with this one, bro. And Magneto is like, yes, Charles, we must ride or die with this one. So that's the whole thing. Bishop, the whole time, is just doing the right thing the whole time. Let's get out of here. We're not supposed to be here. I got time bands. Let's get back to the 90s now. And then, and Magneto scorches the time bands and says, well, Beast could just fix it with whatever ship has or whatever's going on in that temple. Yeah, that was a little wild. What if Beast couldn't fix it? But anyway, Beast did. He fixed it. So Beast ends up fixing the time bands. And then Charles figures out real quick that this is not going to go well, because Insabanor realizes of what he's supposed to become. And he turns to Charles and he tells Charles, you were trying to stop me this whole time from becoming the most powerful. So this is the thing about Insabanor. Survival of the fittest. If he is the most powerful being there ever is, if he is all that is, then he survives. And it's like a drug to him. It's what he is into. It's his thing. Like, he is the ultimate survivor. He is the Apocalypse. He's it. He just exists. And the Celestials are calling out to him and bringing him into the ship. So we're going to rewind a little bit here, and I'm going to give you guys some knowledge. So Celestials, if y'all are familiar with the Celestials, they are beings of the cosmos, and they usher in, they create life, they go to planets, and they kind of spark things. Then they have different people that tend to that, like the Eternals. They created the Eternals to kind of tend to life and deal with it, and the Deviants. So they create the Eternals and the Deviants on Earth, and then somehow or another, the Eternals and the Deviant genes, somehow it's all in the in the origins of the Marvel Universe. All that gets mixed up and we get mutants. So the Celestials are why we have mutants. So that Celestial, Eason, is there. He's terraformed the Earth and started the Earth at the beginning, and he has sought out Insabanor. And Insabanor is going to happen. And he was the mutant that was supposed to take on the Death Seed. That was the way that the Celestials wanted it, because he's the one, they know what they did. They came into Earth and they experimented with things and did different things. They created mutants. And then other things happen later on. You get other powered people, and Earth just becomes kind of like, the superheroes on Earth become like an anomaly. You can't really stop them. Like, they just continue to thwart bad things. Like, it's a superhero world, so the Celestial knows what he did, so he needs to create an answer to that. and that is Apocalypse. Why does Apocalypse want to be that? As I said before, survival of the fittest. He wants to be the end. That's what he wants. That's who he is. That's what he wants. And that's what we get. And so he tells Charles, you tried to stop me. That's it. And they try to fight him off. Rogue comes in and knocks the crap out of him. Magneto, they're all trying to fight him, but he just wipes the floor with them because this is like his destiny, And so he jumps in and he takes the Death Seed. And the Death Seed turns him into the Apocalypse from last season, from the previous X-Men animated series, the Apocalypse we've seen in the comics. All in all, he comes walking out screaming the I am the rocks, the eternal shore crash against me and be broken line, and he is all that is Apocalypse. He comes in, totally wipes the floor with all of them. Before he emerges from the chamber, he's in there transforming, and before he emerges from the chamber, Bishop is like, let's get out of here, like for real this time. We're getting out of here. Bishop fires up the time bands. And they start to go back, but then Charles and Hank believe that they're there to stop him. Maybe that's destiny. Maybe it's destiny for them to be there to stop Apocalypse. But Magneto's not having it. Magneto says, I'm the villain here. You guys get out of here. And he slaps the armbands on Rogue, Nightcrawler, Bishop, and Hank and Xavier and sends them through the time portal. But Apocalypse comes out as that's happening, and Xavier is kept in the past with Magneto. And the battle ensues as Apocalypse decides he's going to take out Ramatut's empire because that's the dude that's been giving him all kinds of crap for a while. So he sends a ship. He flies over with a ship to go basically destroy the entire colonization of Egyptians, all of Pharaoh's kingdom. And Magneto decides, they're able to fight off Apocalypse. Magneto is, and get him away from him and Charles. They obviously take damage while doing it because Apocalypse is Apocalypse. And then Magneto decides, I'm going to stop, because it's like the energy creates like a black hole, so it's going to like try to suck the kingdom in and destroy it. He decides, okay, I'm going to go and save the day. Charles, I'm leaving you behind. You honor me with action. I'm not, I'm Magneto. I'm redeemed. He's being a hero, man. And I want to tell you, like, Magneto in this episode, the final moments of this episode of Magneto just playing the hero and saving this Egyptian civilization from Apocalypse was so awesome. It was so good. It was so good how he did it, and like how they portrayed his abilities and his powers and his will. It was just really, really good. So as the ship's coming towards the city, though, Ramatut sees it, and he's like, nah, and he just throws on his Kang gear, and out comes his chrono travel ship, and he looks at the girl behind him, which I can't remember her name, but so the girl that's been hanging out with him is she's either Genesis or it's like a chimera. I can't remember her name, but she was in the original series. She was she was the external that Gambit and the Thieves Guild had to give a gift to, and it was tied into Gambit's backstory. So Kang tells her, well, your destiny starts now. And she's like, what? And he's just like, haha, and Skeletor's it on out of there. He's gone because he couldn't get the Celestial Seed or whatever. He's just gone, man. And so Magneto saves the day, saves all of them. He's gravely hurt, laying in the desert. Charles has been mind blasted by Apocalypse so many times, he's out of it. Like, Apocalypse's ability to withstand his telepathy now in his new form. And he goes and tries to get to Magneto, and this is just when it just gets really sad. And this is a pivotal point, because Apocalypse takes Magneto, and he's just kind of like, hey, Charles, say goodbye to your best homie, and just evaporates him, like eradicates him. He's done. No more Magneto. Magneto is dead. He joins Gambit. He's dead. Charles then, just out of terror and grief and everything, all these emotions, basically curses Apocalypse to death. Like, says some horrible stuff. Like, that's some rough stuff right there. So this is big because the trauma of Xavier losing Magneto, when they may still share their mind, they still may share some mind bond from what happened in the last season. So that's going to be an interesting pull. Apocalypse rolls out. He's basically like, I'm not going to, only a coward. He says to him, only a coward feels mighty stepping on an ant. So he spares Xavier and rolls out. Bishop shows back up, takes Xavier back to the future. So that was that was just crazy how these first 4 episodes went. And like where we're going from that, it's just going to be even crazier. So there is an end credit scene, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. So spoilers. Magneto's dead. Apocalypse goes about. He does his thing. He's going to show up, and he's in the present day. So they were destined to make Apocalypse anyway. Apocalypse knew this. He knew this before it was going to happen. He said so in Beyond the Good and Evil. How come they always find a way to thwart me and stop me? And there you go. Like, he knew about this from the beginning. Like, he knew they were going to come back and do this as part of his origin story. So everything we know of Apocalypse in the series is what happens. It's all there. So we get this Apocalypse now. It's in the past. So the future version of Apocalypse has sent his consciousness to the present version of Apocalypse that grew out of the past version of Apocalypse. Was that good? Was that too much? That's what I think's going on. This is the Apocalypse we're going to get, and he is nothing but hell-bent on trying to give the X-Men all kinds of crap. That's what he wants to do. I'm going to give the X-Men all kinds of crap. Because they gave me the crap in the past, gave me the crap in the future, and they've been giving me the crap in the present. I'm done with this. I'm going after them. I'm not trying to destroy the world. I'm just going after the X-Men. That's all he's up to right now. So Charles going through that trauma with Magneto is going to lead, like, if they still share that bond, and there's only one force I can think that can stop this version of Apocalypse, and that's Onslaught. If you're not familiar with Onslaught, then this will be a big surprise to you. If you are familiar with Onslaught, then you know where I'm going with this. I feel like that Onslaught is going to surface at the end of the season and defeat Apocalypse. That Xavier is going to shift into Onslaught, and then that's what's going to be what they're going to deal with in season 3. Now, how does Magneto come back? I'll just give you a little hint. If you guys remember Joseph from the Grant Morrison comics, I don't know if y'all remember Joseph, then you know where I'm hitting at with that too. But obviously Gambit is going to end up becoming a Horseman. We all know that's going to happen, that something's going on. He's going to resurrect Gambit somehow. That External is going to come back. There's going to be some sort of backstory with her and Apocalypse. I feel like they're probably husband and wife at this point. I feel like that she is the wife of Apocalypse in the present, and we're going to see that, or they were a past thing or something like that, and that'll be some thing that'll help weaken Apocalypse's story too as we continue on. But the biggest thing that's going into the next episode was the end credits scene with Wolverine. And it's going to be so good. So in the end credit scene, Wolverine is on top of a building in France, and Captain America shows up. We got Captain America in the last season, so we get Captain America again. Another Marvel cameo. And then another Marvel cameo happens and catches Wolverine off guard, and that's Black Widow. And she's in her 90s costume, which is the gray costume with the stingers and like the big Black Widow and the short hair, which is awesome. Because if you remember Uncanny X-Men, I think it's 268, the cover is Wolverine in his brown costume with Cap and Black Widow, and they're about to do some get down to business at Madripoor. So they kind of gives you that nostalgic vibe in that end credit scene. But they hand Wolverine a folder on Weapon X. So what I think is about to happen is in this next episode, Wolverine is going to go through and get Sabretooth and Maverick and Lady Deathstrike and Silver Fox, and Morph will be there with him because Morph is his home slice, and Morph's just going to go with him, so that if we need to see any other cameos, Morph will just turn into them and fight. So he'll be there. And also, Morph's really funny. I like Morph. He's great comedic relief for the show. And they're going to go to the Weapon X facility, and Lady Deathstrike is there for one reason. So Lady Deathstrike's father is the one that created the adamantium bonding process, created the ability to do it, according to the original X-Men animated series. And that was the beef between her and Logan. She has adamantium hands that were grafted onto her with the help of the were cybernetic dudes. I can't remember what they were called, but it was like her band of dudes, but they had like cybernetics done to them so they could like fight mutants or whatever. But they gave her like adamantium claws on her hands because she wanted revenge on Wolverine and all this stuff, because he ended up killing her father when he broke out of the facility. And so he's going to need her knowledge of her father's formula to try to get the adamantium back. Why does Wolverine want the adamantium back? I'm really hoping they get into that in this next episode, because it's starting to drive me a little crazy. Like, in the original series, he didn't even know that his claws were a part of his mutation. He didn't even know that the bone claws were a part of his anatomy. He just thought they gave him those claws. So now he knows that they're a part of his anatomy. They might, because of what happened to him, maybe his healing factor kicked in and he got some of his memories back. So, and that's why he's kind of going the route he's going. He's had time in the future to think about this stuff and heal. Also, the damage from his healing factor being pushed so far is causing him to mutate. Adamantium in his on his skeleton was causing his healing factor to always work in a certain at a certain degree to keep from poisoning him from the adamantium. That's why Wolverine and or a Sabretooth is able to get the bonding process. And because of that, he doesn't further mutate. And it may be because Wolverine's primary mutant ability and mutation is his feral rages. And if he mutates even more, like in the comic books, when more and more feral he became, the more animalistic he became, he couldn't be trusted. He could lash out at any moment. The only really crazy thing about him in that state is his healing factor is like unbeatable. Like, he heals so fast, it's not funny. And his senses, everything animalistic about him is dialed up. So hopefully we'll get some of that in this, and get some of the cool things of him being in his feral form in this next episode, and then we'll get him back in his adamantium form. They're going to figure out how to do that, and I think that's going to be a really fun episode to watch. And then we're going to leap forward and hopefully see what happens in episode 6, episode 7, and so forth. But man, this series, this last 4 episodes has been great. I love it. Everybody's like, well, this season's not as good as the original season. I said, well, original season, we didn't have it for so long, and we got something really good, and it was just great. It was just really astonishing to get that. And yeah, it's going to feel that way. But if you're a fan like the rest of us and a fanboy, you're going to continue to keep having these, see these episodes. You're going to continue to find great stuff about season 2 as well. Because it's not nearly, I think they're both on the same level, season 1 and season 2. So far, I just, it's all the same to me. It's me, again, as a kid on Saturday morning, just watching my favorite superheroes on TV. So I hope everybody is having a blast with this series, and thanks for listening to me ramble. And I will hopefully just do 1 episode reviews from now on, and not this long 4-episode review. But thanks for listening, guys. And you can catch me on TikTok at Tavern Geek, where I review craft beers and talk about some nerdy stuff. You can also catch me helping out Nerd Initiative. And you can go like and follow and subscribe to Nerd Initiative on all social media platforms. All kinds of great stuff going on there. And thank you guys, and peace.